Daily Ticker Time on a Tuesday, brought to you as always by our good friends at Pelican Brewing. 4 locations along the Oregon coast. Fly over to a Pelican location. Enjoy epic views, local brews all year long. Pelican Brewing looks forward to seeing you at the coast. A little bit of news in the college football world over the weekend, or potential news, I should say, on the horizon of a new expanded college football playoff. Didn't take us long to expand again.
We kind of knew it was coming.
We knew it was coming. Joining us now, Brandon Marcello, our good friend, national college football reporter for CBS Sports, at @BMarcello on Twitter. You can go give him a follow there. Brandon, good morning to you. It feels like there's been rumblings about this for a while. We're going to get more automatic qualifiers from the Big Ten, from the SEC. Hell, the Big 12 and the ACC will get another one as well. Your reaction to it this seemingly being close to a done deal of an expanded playoff with more automatic qualifiers?
Yeah, it's been inevitable, it seems like, for the last year or so. The Big Ten and the SEC, starting beyond the 2026 season, will pretty much have control of the CFP. They have the controlling voting power, the most voting power, going forward under that new ESPN contract that goes from 26 through 31. And as a result, the Big Ten and the SEC have been kind of coming together and figuring out what they kind of want this CFP to look like in 26 and beyond. The issue, though, is that, the other conferences, the other FBS commissioners and Notre Dame's AD, it doesn't necessarily mean they're on board with it, but it's going to be interesting to see here over the next couple months when, they're all getting together. They're actually getting in the same room and discussing everything, and the Big Ten and the SEC kind of present their idea, their proposal here, and seeing what the reaction is going to be there. Remember, there's one more year left in the current contract. So, right now, these changes, the big changes at least, won't happen obviously this next year, but it will happen the year after next. So right now in the current contract, you need, unanimity from everybody in voting power. But starting in 26 and beyond, the SEC and Big Ten have the most votes, so to speak, and they can kind of push that forward. So what it looks like right now is that the SEC and Big Ten want 4 automatic qualifiers. And following that, everything trickles down to the other conferences. And, that's kind of been something that's been building for quite a bit. And it kind of removes a lot of power away from the selection committee and in those rankings. And that's kind of what the SEC and Big Ten have been wanting to do over the last year or two. As you've seen, the SEC and Big Ten have been very clear that they have some issues with the makeup of the selection committee, the people on it. And of course, this past year, there was some controversy, at least from the SEC standpoint, of who was in that last spot in the college football playoff.
Do you think this is a good thing for the sport?
Probably not. I look at it as like this. It just seems like we try to gunk up the process every time we seem to be taking one step forward. And by that, I mean, I think that having a 12-team playoff or a 14-team playoff is great for the sport, but then you have everybody gunking up the process. It's not as simple as, well, let's take the top 14 teams. It's, no, we get automatic qualifiers from this conference and this conference, and then there's 2 spots left remaining. So it's like, what's the point of doing a ranking at that point? And also what we're seeing here is once the SEC and Big Ten get their way with 4 automatic qualifiers, it's going to force the hands of the other conferences to follow the SEC and Big Ten's lead to do some play-in games for the college football playoff. So, conference championship weekend, that's the big thing to me, is going to look a lot different. We're going to be potentially seeing, 2 games in each conference or maybe even more, kind of almost like not necessarily a postseason tournament, but these play-in tournament games where, your conference champion might actually just be the one that was winning the regular season. And meanwhile, your teams that maybe finished 1 and 2 in the conference standings are sitting at home on conference championship weekend, while a few other teams below them are fighting it out for play-in games. I mean, that's exciting, I guess, on that last week of the regular season, but it just takes kind of the, when we actually look at the legitimacy of the process, it's just like, what about the other teams that, might be ranked in the top 12 or whatever, that or top 16 or top 15 or whatever, that go into that final weekend and just kind of like, well, what's the point of play a game when we know that the SEC and the Big Ten are gobbling up these spots no matter what.
Yeah, wait till the tiebreaker scenarios too play into that, where if you don't, the number 2, 3, and
Yeah.
4 team are all tied in conference standings, and one of them gets to the second nod in a tiebreaker spot, and the other team's got to go into a play-in situation. Brandon Marcello, our guest, national college football reporter for CBS Sports at @bmarcello on Twitter. You can go follow him there. You had an article, I think it was last week, that I thought was really interesting about the way the teams are looking at spring football and changing the calendar. And this all kind of started or stemmed from a Matt Rule complaint that he might cancel Nebraska's spring game because he's worried about showcasing guys and then putting things on film, and then other programs calling and saying, hey, enter the portal. That was a nice 90-yard touchdown you had in the spring game. And you're hearing that maybe there's going to be more of like an OTA. It's going to look more like the NFL. The playoff certainly is. Where are we at on that, and how many programs do we think are going to start following through with that?
Yeah, last month in January, before Matt Rule's comments, the AFCA, the Coaches Association, had their annual meeting, and out of that came that proposal about shrinking the 2 transfer portal windows from December and April to just one for a 10-day period in January, and that's being pushed up the NCAA ranks. It's probably going to face some pushback. I'm not sure it'll even come to be. But during those discussions in January among the coaches, they discussed what should we be doing with spring practices. Should we actually be doing 15 spring practices in a spring game when right now the college football season is longer than ever because of the expanded playoff? Because of the transfer portal windows, our rosters are not necessarily deep at that point in the months of February, March, and April. We also are probably practicing with a roster that looks nothing like it's going to look like in August when preseason camp rolls around. We're worried about injuries, and also we're worried about tampering if our spring game that maybe closely resembles what an actual game looks like on Saturdays is broadcast nationally on television for all these coaches to watch and potentially tamper with our rosters heading into that mid-April transfer portal window. And I think a lot of coaches who are still in the game right now, who were around in 2020, remember we all had to cancel spring practices at that point because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we ended up voting to do OTAs, kind of an OTA format in June and July. And the coaches really liked that. And I think that there's some of that taste for that as well. It'll be interesting to see moving forward if they bring this up again. Several coaches I talked to told me that the shrinking of the transfer portal window, if that were to get approved and just move that to January, that might alleviate some concerns for them. But a lot of those coaches want to move to more of an OTA format anyway. They don't like the spring game idea. They don't also like the idea that I'm limited to 15 practices in like 1 month. A lot of them want to be able to practice in June and do some team activities. So, and the reason for that is because then their roster will be a little bit deeper. A lot of early enrollees, they don't all arrive in January. Some of them don't get there until the summer months, and for that matter, after this second transfer portal window. So a lot of coaches, they're in favor of the OTAs, but maybe not starting them until June. One Mountain West head coach told me that one idea he presented was give us 30 allotted days of OTAs, but start it in January whenever your spring semester starts and go all the way through the month of June or July so you can pick and choose which months to kind of spread that out.
2 a month. That's not bad.
I actually don't hate that idea.
Yeah. Do 3 this week, none next week, 2 next week. All right.
Are the leaders of this sport, are they just making this up as they go? And how did we get to this place of the sport where it's just so much uncertainty and so many different, this is going to happen, now this is going to happen? How did we get here?
Well, it's been a house of cards, really. The NCAA sat around thinking, they're big, fat, and happy, but all it was going to take was someone to kind of blow it down. The legal challenges, as we've seen over the last few years, have just absolutely gutted what the NCAA, quote unquote, stands for. They've pinned down the student athletes, as they call them, for their entire existence, and the NCAA could do nothing to fight back against that because they know what they were doing was, illegal according to the court systems. And as a result, everybody's coming in to pick the bones off of the NCAA. And, the NCAA is going to continue to exist, but it's been absolutely toothless the last 4 to 5 years. And anybody who thinks the NCAA can do anything to you is just absolutely silly. And as a result, it's required a lot of leaders, NCAA and down, including, of course, conference commissioners and ADs, to kind of have to think on their feet. How do we adjust in this new atmosphere? And the problem with it is that not a lot of folks were really prepared for it because, to be quite honest with you, athletic directors, for the most part, they're thinking short term. They're a lot like politicians. How do I survive year to year? How do I keep my job? They're not thinking about what's college football actually going to look like in 5, 10 years, or college athletics for that matter. And commissioners are really the ones who should have that level head, the ones that look to the future and everything. The problem is that a lot of them weren't really prepared either and don't quite know how to handle all this because of the legal landmines that are completely out of their control. But the fact of the matter is that this entire enterprise has been running for years and years and years based off of a lie. And that lie was we can do whatever we want and not pay the players or share any of the pie with the players. And, well, surprise, surprise, the court system says that's illegal. You can't be doing that. And so the entire basis of this entire enterprise has been taken out from under their feet.
Yeah, never saw that one coming. Great stuff. A really good summation of everything going on in the college football world. Brandon Marcello is his name, national college football reporter for CBS Sports at @bmarcello on Twitter. He had a great article up on the changes potentially coming to spring games, the landscape shifting again in the playoff. Thanks so much for the time, man. We appreciate it as always, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports. Spring games going away, potentially.
OTAs.
And we got more AQs. You a big AQ guy over there? You like automatic qualifiers?
I mean, I have a lot of questions. What is the point of the ranking?